Here we are, episode number 263. Just finished recording with legendary Jake Berry. Not too many people in this industry that I give legend status to, but he's certainly one of them with his work on the Stones and all of the incredible stuff he did on U2, including The Sphere, and Coldplay and AC/DC and Motley Crue. And I mean, the guy's a legend, and he's just a super nice guy. He's a great storyteller. He tells some amazing stories on this podcast, including, again, telling some stories about AC/DC that you may or may not have heard before if you heard my podcast, but a lot of other stuff, too. And it's a very funny start. I apologize for the beginning. Of course, we come in talking about racing, of which he's a huge fan, so please enjoy it. Welcome to Geezers of Gear, episode number 263. Today's podcast is brought to you by ACT Entertainment. ACT is North America's leading supplier of the entertainment industry's principal products to professionals across 6 different end markets, including professional lighting fixtures and lighting control equipment, audio, video, fiber, power distribution, cables, connectivity, metalwork, custom manufacturing, and design. With ACT Entertainment, you get the industry's top performance products, as well as service, education, and engineering support to bring every entertainment professional concept to reality. Visit their website, actentertainment.com. And today's podcast is also brought to you by GearSource, founded in 2002 with an ambitious mission to support live events businesses to buy and sell gear globally. Since that time, the company transacted in more than 100 countries, selling $250 million in sound, lighting, staging, and video gear. GearSource continues to evolve the platform for massive global growth, enabling localized currencies, payment held in escrow to protect buyers and sellers, AI-powered logistics behind a new global logistics brand, and more. In fact, the company has just released massive new features, including Gear Sync, with the ability to manage up to 400 listings at once, and NeedZone, an automated shopping assistant for hard-to-find items. Take full control over your gear with a visit to GearSource.com. So, we're welcoming Sarah back this week. She was away for a week. She strayed from us. She left us for a week, and she went on tour, I think, with Blink 182 in Ireland and England and Scotland, or maybe just Ireland and Scotland. I don't remember. Was talking with her this morning. She had a great time. We might have to do a podcast and discuss how touring has changed from the last time she went out until this time. And so she's back, and she's happy to be back, and she's happy to be back in her seat producing Geezers of Gear. And we're working on a pretty big event for LDI as well, which we'll tell you more about very soon. So welcome back, Sarah. And also right now, Plaza is going on as I am recording this. Plaza is happening in England, in London. And many of our friends are there, and I didn't go. I've been to Plaza, 15 times or something. It's a great show. I actually miss going. I would have liked to have been there. And funny side story, or not funny, but an interesting fact is that I was at Plaza during 9/11. So as the terrible events occurred, I was getting messages and calls from Florida telling me what was going on, and eventually made my way into a media center at Plaza where a bunch of Americans were standing around just staring up at the television in total disbelief. And so, yeah, it was a nutty event and a really weird time for us all, obviously. Terrible time. And actually, as I record this, it's September 4th, so we're exactly a week away from that anniversary, which is not a happy one. AI. So I actually had a couple people reach out to me thanking me for suggesting certain AI apps to try. And hey, anytime, it's something that I'm passionate about and I like quite a lot. And I do pay attention to some new stuff when I have time. I haven't had a lot of time in this past week, but I do want to talk to you about a couple things, starting with scientists have successfully connected AI to the nervous systems of a certain type of worms, allowing the AI to direct those worms towards specific targets. This technology showcases the remarkable potential of AI to interact with and influence biological organisms. This is a big deal. So yeah, thought that was interesting. Am I really following it closely or anything? No, I'm not. But it's obvious that AI is going to play a major role in solving things like blindness and diseases and all kinds of things. And of course, Elon Musk with the chip that he's inserting into humans is going to hopefully solve a lot of problems and not create too many more. It's a scary thought, but if you looked back 20 years and said, hey, we're going to insert chips into humans that are going to help them think better and solve a lot of, neurological diseases or problems or failures or whatever, I don't know that we would have believed it. It's happened so quickly all of a sudden. One of the things I'm looking at right now or trying, testing, playing with is something called Flux. And Flux is a photo generating app or an image generating app. Some of the examples that they show and stuff that I've been playing with is where you can insert a background into a photo, and that background can be a cityscape, it can be a concert, it can be all kinds of things. They're incredibly real. They call it hyper real, and it really is hyper real. Like when they show you a comparison, this photo's real, these three are made up. You'd be shocked. It's just incredible how good it's gotten already. They can swiftly generate convincing images of people and places, altering reality with a few clicks. This is one of their little promos, I guess, or specs or whatever, reaching a level where distinguishing between an authentic photograph and an AI-generated image is increasingly challenging. And obviously this brings about some concerns and some challenges and some problems. So Flux's open access nature raises concerns about its potential misuse and brings digital ethics clearer into play here. So this is obviously a huge concern, and this is something that the whole world is at least thinking about. I would expect that there's going to be some regulation involving the use of images, what is owned by someone, including their own image. Can I just copy images of Taylor Swift drinking a soft drink that I've created, that's my product or whatever? Can I have her using my product in an image? And what kind of fines or penalties are involved if I do that on social media or whatever? So, yeah, obviously this is the potential black hole side of AI, which is, all of these intellectual property concerns and just rights, digital rights, who owns what. It's going to get increasingly complex, and there's going to be a lot of lawsuits filed over this. So what do I say every week? I'm really excited about today's guest because I'm so fortunate. I'm grateful for the fact that so many people are interested and willing to come on this podcast. And these people, some of them are legends. Some of them are people that I've looked up to for most of my career or all of my career and just gone, whoa, that guy's a superstar. And this guy's one of them. So a career spanning almost 40 years now, Jake Berry is a multiple award-winning production director, production designer, production manager, production, all sorts of things. Known throughout the industry as a go-to guy for any successful tour. Jake is the founder and CEO of Jake Berry Productions, a leading tour production management company. Hailing from Devon, England, Jake comes from modest beginnings. Jake's career began as a drum and percussion technician. Actually, I wonder if that's really true, because I remember the story that he told me where he was a keyboard tech for Yes, and from there suddenly got hired to be the production manager of AC/DC, and we might get him to tell that story again today on today's podcast. Progressing through various international tours with groups, including the Rolling Stones, U2, Metallica, Coldplay, and so many others. We had the pleasure of Jake being on the podcast back in August of 21. That is episode number 129. If you want to check it out on Apple or Spotify, it won't be on YouTube because we didn't start YouTube until just last year. So please join me and welcome Jake back to the podcast. Thanks.
You need to travel with him. I traveled with him, and he was the fucking worst.
Yeah.
The worst.
Who?
Scott. Terrible.
Oh, really?
12-year-old kid traveling.
Scott Speed.
Yeah. So we went to Bahrain, and he finished third in that GP2 season.
Yeah.
And the guy that won it was Heikki Kovalainen.
Yeah.
And Nico Rosberg finished second.
Huh.
in that championship.
Worked out for both of them, didn't it?
Yeah. And then Scott got promoted to Toro Rosso.
Yeah.
And he did not hit it off with the principal Franz Tost.
Yeah.
And there was lots of going back and forth. And then Scott, I think, delivered he had a direct link to Dietrich, right? Mateschitz, the head of Red Bull Racing, and had a Red Bull. And he kind of went round, tossed his back, and went there. And then after a crash in Nuremberg, where Scott crashed, and so did 8 of the other drivers in wet conditions, I must admit.
Yeah.
And then they got into a bit of a fight. So then they sacked him, but then they put him in the Red Bull NASCAR program.
Yeah.
And that NASCAR program was run by Gunther Steiner.
Yeah.
Okay. And
such a great guy.
Yeah. So I got to know Gunther very well, and still know him to these days, actually.
Yeah.
Although I've now lost my connection to get Formula One tickets. So
is he.
He'll always be around.
Yeah, he'll be fine.
Wants him around,
Yeah.
Until we went to NASCAR, and then that he managed to. Actually, I went to the Daytona 500 and we led 12 laps.
Yeah.
Fantastic feeling.
Yeah.
And then he went down to ARCA and he rode trucks. I mean, in ARCA series, we were going to win it, and it was between us and Ricky Stenhouse Jr.
Yeah.
And all we had to do was to keep ahead of Ricky Stenhouse. And Ricky Stenhouse went after Scott and pushed him into the wall.
As you do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then Scott Speed then came out of the pits as Stenhouse was coming back and made sure he wouldn't win the championship by T-boning him.
Jesus.
So there's the newer NASCAR people saying this is wrong, and the older NASCAR people going, he just got what he deserved.
Yeah.
And now Scott he's a works driver for Subaru in the GP Nitro series. So
yeah. He's not doing GRC anymore, Global Rallycross?
Yes, but yeah, GRC, yeah.
Yeah.
And I saw a clip from him. He went to the Goodwood Festival of Speed.
Yeah.
And he did the hill climb in the Subaru, and I saw
that as well. Yeah, I saw that as well. Yeah, he broke his back a few years ago, right?
Yeah, going over a bump.
Yeah.
And I would go to Scott, and I would, everywhere I go, I took my friend Mitch Margolin to Daytona.
Mm-hmm.
And he goes, I said, yeah, we'll go and see Scott. And he thought that, I would poke my nose in and say hi to Scott. And I went up to the pit, the trailer. And, I go, hey, Scott, how are you? And go, he drops everything and comes over. And I introduced him to Mitch. And Mitch is, I think, a little bit starstruck.
Yeah.
And he said to Mitch, he goes, Scott will tell you this if you ask him, how did you get this far? It's quite possible he'll say that if it wasn't for Jake and spending money on me, I wouldn't have made it this far. So
wow. So that's amazing. The thing is, Jake, today, so, my son's 20. He did last year in England. He raced a couple of different series in England last year. My son, opposite of Scott, would live in Europe in a second. For the next 10 years, he'd love to. But the money now, is so much different than what you're talking about. Like 75,000 for 12%. 75,000 wouldn't get you anywhere anymore. Like,
No.
so right now the going rate for Indy is about 12 to 15 million for 2 seasons. And that's as a driver coming in, like that's what you're going
A
to
paid
pay to get
driver.
in. You're going to pay to get in unless you've just won everything in the world and they want you on one of the teams. But even like Andretti and Penske and stuff are taking paid seats now. And so it's like, I hate to say it, but we've got friends in IndyCar that my kid has beaten all the way through karting and even in cars. We've got some friends going through the Formula One route who are in F2, or they're even reserve drivers in some cases who we've beaten in karts and cars. But, I can't fund it. Like, I just don't, and even within our industry, like, I've got a lot of connections in our industry who have been very gracious and have helped to support him. But the money, even if I collect 100,000 or 150,000 from
Yeah,
people
you have
that,
two races.
yeah, I mean, Formula Two now, I think is around 6 million for a season, something like that. Like, it's an insane number. Formula Three is around 2 million euro for a season of Formula Three. Formula Four is almost €1 million. It's just insane money right now. It's insane.
Imagine that you're a top driver and you have to spend 10 million to get a seat, right? Imagine if you're a college football player and you want to go to
Yeah, you got to
uh,
spend 10 million to go
you,
play for.
the New York Jets want you in their team, and you
Yeah.
can come and play for us if you give us 10 million. People would say that's not right, but
No,
in
of
Formula
course they
One,
would.
I mean, there's a couple of prime examples in there. I mean, you look at Lance Stroll and Aston Martin, right?
Yeah.
Is he there because of his dad in a New York second? Is he? I think he's an okay driver, but he's an okay driver amidst a lot of very good ones.
He'd never
And
be in Formula One if he wasn't Lawrence
not
Stroll's
a
son.
chance. But,
There he wouldn't.
I was very surprised because I always thought that Lance was fast and he was not very good on tricky circuits or technical circuits.
Yeah.
But he always did well at Monza, and this year at Monza it was a complete disaster.
Yeah. Yeah. Now he's there obviously because his dad's the boss, and
Yeah,
now his dad. I've just read a rumor this morning that they're giving Adrian Newey 25 million to come to Aston
bargain.
next. Yeah. Well, I mean, it is or it isn't, but it's going to put you in the conversation, that's for sure. And
Sure.
for him, 25 million is peanuts, you know.
Yeah, so like they once said to I don't know, there was an interview and I can't remember, I think it was Lewis Hamilton. And they said, what team would you like to race for most? He goes, the one with Adrian Newey.
Yeah. Yeah, the guy's that good.
Yeah.
He really is.
And he
And
doesn't
we've
use the computer. It's all rulers and hand drawn, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, and there's very few people like that, and like you mentioned earlier, Mike Speed is one of the guys in karting who's like that. Like he could look at a Tony kart and tell you exactly how it needed to be adjusted. His biggest thing was carburation. Like Mike Speed in go-karts was a carburation genius. He'd go off into a little hidden place and he'd do some adjustments to the carb and he'd come back and you'd be like 3/10 faster and you'd go, what did you just do? I don't know.
So I mean,
Something.
Mike Speed with Scott. Mike believed in Scott.
Yeah.
I mean, they had I wouldn't, they had an up and down relationship. They argued a lot. I think they still
Yeah.
but like Mike went into so much debt to get Scott where he wanted, like a
Yeah.
double mortgage on a house.
Yeah.
And you have to have the utmost respect for people like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Well,
Mike
I mean,
Speed struggled for being a genius.
let's face it, when your last name is Speed, you've got a little pressure on you. You're not going
You
to
know,
you're not going to make it in whatever. You're not going to make it in a lot of industries, but
so
you're going to
once I had an idea that I was going to take, to try to get sponsors, and I was going to go to American Express, and I was going Scott Speed, the American Express.
that's a
Nothing
good
ever
one.
came of it.
Yeah, that's a good one. Do you know Alex as well, his brother?
I do.
Yeah, so Alex was like Jeremy's engineer for a number of years, my son's engineer in karts. They were the best. I mean, Speed, I helped him come up with his name, Speed Concept Racing, because I always argued with him, you got to use your name. It's your name. And he goes, yeah, but it sounds so cheesy. Speed, race fast. And I'm like, but it's your freaking name. So you got to use it.
Now, years
So,
ago, Mike's wife passed away, right?
yeah. Yeah. And
I mean,
then,
they they
his,
put they put their heart and soul and house and name and money
yeah.
on the line for their son.
Yeah, they did.
And
Yeah.
Alex wasn't a mean go-kart racer either.
Yeah.
He,
Yeah. No, and honestly, I'd like to say he's the only one because I did and so many fathers did, because you just look at your son and like my son from the age of 7 never wanted to do anything else in the world except be in a go-kart and then at 15 in a race car. That was it. That was the only thing he wanted in the world. To this day, it's all he wants. But, now, unfortunately, like most of them, he's on the other side. He's coaching. And so he's coaching a bunch of U.S. Formula 4 drivers. He's sim coaching a lot of drivers. So, yeah, it's a whole thing.
it's sad actually when there's a lot of talent out there that's better than some of the talent that's there
Yeah.
because with a Formula One car, I don't know if you're as much a driver as a computer genius
Yeah, it's true.
or a mixture of both.
Yeah.
And,
Well, and then,
and it's always the best driver and the best car will win. I
yeah.
mean, it amazes me that they go like the Aston Martin's really slow
Yeah.
because it's 9/10 of a second slower on a lap than anyone. 9/10 of a second.
Yeah. It's insane,
Nine
isn't it?
tenths. It's like
Yeah.
a blink of an eye.
Yeah, yeah. 9/10 of a second on a minute and a half lap, right? Or whatever. So no, it's incredible. It's all incredible. And the drivers, there's so many great drivers right now. I think a lot of them will never make it to Formula One. A lot of them will never make it to Formula 3 because the money's just not there. It's a terrible story right now. Those with loads of money are making it on, and the grids are going to end up watered down. The grids are going to get lame. Like I think right now IndyCar is pretty exciting. There's some pretty good things happening in IndyCar right now. But even there, like if you look at the last 5, 6, 7 drivers usually on the sheets at the end of the day, those guys are paying millions of dollars to be in those seats. And yeah, it's just not right. I don't like
I
it.
had a burning ambition once in
Just
my
once.
crazy. Well, and racing. I wanted to go to Indianapolis from like the start or get into like Wednesday or Monday before the race, then walk up and down pit row and find it who wanted $25,000.
Huh. Yeah.
And go, here, have $25,000. I just want my name on a car. And going back to what you said about our industry friends, I did that with Colin Fleming in Formula Atlantic, I think.
Yeah.
And so I got my friends from Stageco, Upstage, Screenworks, Cat Entertainment, and I go, you want to give me some sponsorship money? So we raised 100 grand, and that was good.
Yeah, that's very good.
Season, and like 20 grand for each company, and we put it over the car, and we had
Nice.
a great car. And then also there back in the GP2 days, Colin was trying to race for a Swiss outfit. I can't remember the name, and they wanted some money for a wind tunnel test and wind tunnel testing time.
Yeah.
I used to own a bunch of sound consoles that I rented. So I sold one and paid for wind tunnel time.
Ah, nice.
And all that got me, my company was called Fader Hire then. And I have a picture of Colin driving around Monaco with Fader Hire on the mirrors.
Nice. Yeah.
And I got nothing out of it except that's fucking cool.
Well, so, remarkably, there's a company in our industry called Ayrton Lighting, which, is a major automated lighting manufacturer now, one of the top guys out there. And the founder, Ivan, is a French guy who was a massive Formula One fan and was obviously a massive Ayrton Senna fan. And when Ayrton died, he closed the company for a couple of weeks in mourning. And then a little bit later on, changed the name of his company to Ayrton, and just totally based.
So
for the past couple of years, one of our main sponsors was Ayrton Lighting, and so we had big Ayrton logo on the car, and people would always be like, "Are you just huge fans, or what's the deal?" And we're like, "No, no, look, it says Ayrton Digital Lighting," and so you got in a lot of really great conversations at the track. That was for sure. Like we were at I think Brands Hatch. And a guy comes up to me and says, "We just delivered a bunch of those lights yesterday," and I was like, "Oh, really?" And so, yeah, it's great. Like I said, our industry's been very, very good to us,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
not good enough to get us into IndyCar or into any of the next steps, Formula 3, which we have two or three friends in F3, one in F2 now. And, it's a long, expensive road.
Yeah, there you go. Very interesting.
We've
Very,
thoroughly bored people now, Jake. So let's
yeah.
talk about what they want to
Okay then.
hear about, which is our business. So, I actually had you on the podcast in 2021. I don't know if you remember, but one of my favorite stories was the ACDC story where you're sitting in the pub and I think at the time, weren't you a keyboard tech for Yes or something?
For Rick Wakeman, yeah.
Yeah. And what happened? How'd you get the ACDC gig?
Oh,
Sorry to make you tell it again, but I love it.
we used to drink in this bar called the Warrington Hotel, which was in Maida Vale, which is a division of London.
Yeah.
Everybody drank there. It was, you could pick up a road crew in a good night at the thing at them.
That's
And my very
hilarious.
good friend Ian Jeffrey was the tour. He'd worked for, when I started with Rick in '75, he was the monitor guy.
Yeah.
And then he moved on to tour manage ACDC. So ACDC were looking for a production manager, and he goes, "I've put your name forward." And I go, "But Ian, I've never done anything like this in
I've
my
never
life."
done production management.
He said, "But I told him you were a stage manager on Yes." So I go, which was stretching the truth, I would say. And
Yeah.
so we got there, and I met Peter Mensch, and then later in the story you go, like, who's the people that influence you the most? And you start off with Peter Mensch. Peter Mensch,
Yeah.
I can never have enough thank you and a huge amount of respect for what he's achieved in business. So
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
kind of got to Peter, and Peter agreed, and he sent me out to go and learn to be a production manager in Oakland, California with ACDC. First gig was the Oakland Auditorium, probably the
Wow.
Bill Graham Auditorium.
Jesus.
And there Peter had come from a management company, Lieber Krebs. So, but ACDC were okay to be managed by Lieber Krebs, so long as it was Peter Mensch was the manager.
Right.
So, and then Peter, left and went on his own. They stayed with him. And he goes, "I'm going to send out this guy, Joe Baptista, who was the production manager for Aerosmith and very well respected."
Yeah.
And he goes, "This guy you're going to learn from him, or you're not going to learn from him, and you're going home."
Yeah.
So Joe came in, I met him. Great guy, Joe. Great, great guy. And, don't forget, you had no fax machines. You didn't even have a pager, let alone a cell phone.
Yeah.
And
This was in the 80s, right?
this was in '79.
79. Wow.
So you did everything with a payphone. So, and then, by that time, I think Bill Graham's organization was the first to put, a long distance phone in the production office, where it was MCI or I can't remember the name of the companies, where you hit 9, you dial the number, then you
Yeah.
put a card number. So we advanced. He said, "Listen to me, I'm advancing a show." So I listened to him advance the show, took down some notes, and he had this 4-page questionnaire that, you would ask the questions, do you have loading docks? I mean, back in '79, most of the answers, what are those,
Yeah. Yeah.
And so he let me do it, and I looked at it, he goes, and he said to the next time he called, he goes, "Well, why don't you give it a try? And I'll be here to back you up." So I went through it, and I mean, I could write down, but first of all, I hate writing because my writing's terrible, my spelling's awful.
Yeah.
So I did it, and I went through it like that, and did a couple more, and he goes, "Don't worry, you got it." And he told Peter, "Don't worry, Jake's got it. He'll be okay."
Wow.
And that was it. And many years later, we were playing Metallica, or AC/DC and Metallica in Russia, and I was looking for a site coordinator. So the first person I called was Joe Baptista. I said, "This is what I owe you." And unfortunately,
That's
after
cool.
that, that was the last gig he ever died. When he came home, he had a heart attack and passed away. So, but
Wow.
that's how I started.
Huh. So he gave you your first gig and you gave him his last gig. I think you said that on our first one, so it's not like I'm being smart.
No, no, no. I mean, I've said it.
Yeah.
It's true, and you've been through Peter Mensch, and now you're at Joe Baptista for the people that help you carve your career.
Yeah. That's just amazing though. It's one of the things I love about the foundation of this industry is bands as big as AC/DC, as big as some of these bands, and willing to hire a guy who has nothing on his resume that says production manager. You know what I mean?
Well,
Like,
I used to hang out with in the pub. I used to hang out with all of them. They all used to come to the same pub. So when somebody goes, AC/DC, and I go, yeah, well, I've known them since '76.
yeah,
So I mean, it wasn't strange, and they were quite happy. But I
yeah,
mean, it's it's not what you is who you, at the right. I'm trying to explain this. Being in the right place at the right time, not your
yeah,
skill level, because my skill level certainly wasn't um up there with anybody now. And in some respects, technically wise, there's a whole bunch of people are in this business are far technically, and in
yeah,
our business, I always maintain that 50% of being a production manager was personality, at least
yeah,
50%. How to get your point across without pissing people off.
yeah.
I
Well, and
still
is it
think that today.
is it somewhere between, being a nice guy and creating massive fear?
I don't know if I ever wanted to create massive fear, but it's yes, I think being a nice guy and listening to both sides of the story
Yeah,
and then making in some terms an educated guess. And
yeah.
that's where I learned the four most important words I ever learned of being a production manager. When somebody asks you a question, you go, "I'll get back to you," because you never
Ah,
wanted to appear dumb. So you go
yeah.
find the answer and come back.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, so many people in our industry always say, um, like if you ask them for the best advice, they'll say yes and then go figure it out, and like Cosmo was one of the ones who said that. And so many people did that. Like they didn't, because you couldn't know everything, especially in those early days. Just say
Oh,
yes and then go find out how to do it.
the early days were pioneering.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, we
Absolutely.
were. I mean, there's a lot of people, who were pioneers. Chip Monk,
Yeah.
Stansfield, Joe Bapp. They were all pioneers, and you go to uh, you know, the riggers like Branham and
Yeah.
Fairbanks, who were and Travis, who were the Disney riggers.
Yeah.
And they were the first people to fly a sound system.
Yeah.
You had a platform, you stacked the sound, you ratcheted it, and took it up on four motors.
Yeah.
Very, very basic.
Yes. Yeah. But I mean, incredible. It's incredible always to like, I love this podcast because I get to hear some of these stories of how they created some of the earliest sound systems and made it work, or how they, just it was always a learning thing and a figure it out thing, and making par cans from pineapple cans and stuff like that. So,
Yeah.
but let me ask you, because you worked with ACDC from early on, and also Motley Crue in the '80s, and it's funny because, well, you can't see it right now. Let me see if I can turn. So that's right there is me
Nikki
and
said,
Nikki,
yeah.
but it's me next to him with the long hair, and
Oh,
that
Nikki
was
said
a
this
tour that you worked. That was Theater of Pain.
well,
That
so
was in Calgary. That was in Calgary, by the way. That particular one.
every picture tells a story, doesn't it? According to
Yeah,
Rod Stewart. So I got to know the Motley Crue, and first, probably Doc.
yeah,
I was out working for Ozzy at Bark of the Moon tour,
yeah.
and the Crew were the support act. And
Interesting.
they came up and they had, I don't know who their production manager, I can't remember. Might have been somebody called Roy Franks, I believe.
Mm.
And the crew wanted to hang their Motley Crue backdrop.
Okay.
And Roy said no. And so they were kind of pissed off. And I said, we can do it. So we went and got a pipe and we put some nails in the pipe. And, we had the grommets on their drop and we would hang it. And at the when it was over, we would just let it down.
Huh.
Very simple, very basic.
Yeah,
and
worked.
They go, so what does that cost us? And back in those days, it was either $100 or equivalent.
Yeah. Yeah, I
So
got
that's
it.
how I need to do the crew. So after Bark of the Moon, I went on and did Ronnie James Dio. I was with Dio. And then to be perfectly honest, Dio was, to this day, the only tour that I've ever been asked to leave or fired.
Really?
Yeah. And,
what happened there?
Well, we were trying to save money, and Wendy Dio was, I don't know the complete story, but her and Ronnie were separated, and a rumor had she was involved with a singer from a band called Rough Cut.
Okay.
So Rough Cut with a support act. And then we did our first load out at Alpine Valley, and we were so tight in the trucks, we had to drive the truck down the slope, slam on the brakes so we could close the door, And then we were setting up in Quebec City, and they said they want to see you in the office. And I go, I can't go down the office. I'm trying to explain to a bunch of French Canadian stagehands how the show opens, because it's all about laser timing, opening a curtain and putting in smoke. It had to be coordinated.
Yeah.
And at the end of the night, they said, can you come to the dressing room? So I did. And Wendy said to me, it's not working out, Jake, is it? I go, why? You're getting rid of me? She goes, yeah, I think so. And that was it.
Really?
And it took 30 years later, I met Wendy, 30 years. And she goes, are you still angry at me? I go, of course I am, but I forgive you,
Yeah.
So it was good. And then I went home and I remember.
So there was literally no reason.
Well, I think
because you didn't rush to the office.
Maybe I didn't bow down as much. I don't know. But
interesting.
So, I went home and I had zero money.
Yeah.
I said to my then wife, Maria, I don't know what we're going to do. And within less than 24 hours, Rich Fisher, who was the tour manager from the crew, said, Jake, can you come out and be the stage manager for Theatre of Pain? And I go, here I go. So off I went. And then
that's
after
hilarious.
that, I felt that, everybody used to come for me to decision. So, I'd been a production manager, stage manager. I had to go because I needed the money. But that's how I got to be the production manager for the crew. All stems back from $100 worth of.
That's insane. That's so insane. That's great. Well, and like you said before, take good care of people and treat them right and be cool with people and stuff, and it can turn into a lifetime of gigs, and that's worked out for you and so many people in this industry.
Yes, it has.
Yeah, that Theatre of Pain tour. So that picture, I didn't really ever think about it until I read their book, The Dirt. And I had no idea how fucked up they really were, like how much shit they were doing and ingesting into their bodies. And I look back at that picture and you can see the look in Nicky's eyes. He was wasted. Now I'm going to tell you a story, and you might remember this because this happened in Calgary. And so Vince was on lockdown at this point because of the car accident.
Yep.
And Tommy was married. But Tommy was in love with my secretary, whose name was Beverly. And so Bev and I were talking with Tommy, hanging out, whatever. And we were like, yeah, we got to get going. We're meeting some friends at a club. And he goes, I'm coming. And we go, oh, okay. Well, I have a Corvette. It's only got 2 seats in it. I'm not sure how we're going to work that out, Tommy. And he goes, no. We'll all come. Or no, he goes, somebody will drive me or something. So he grabs a radio from someone and he calls whoever, and it was like everyone had numbers. Tommy was 0, and I can't remember what the number was of the person he called, but it was a manager or something. And he said, I'm going to go to a club with some friends of mine. And he's like, no, Tommy, you're not going anywhere. We're leaving and going to Edmonton. And he goes, no, I'm going to go for a couple hours and hang out with my friends, and you know, and you know, I like these people. I'm going to go hang out. No, Tommy, you're coming with us. We're going to Edmonton. So Tommy starts throwing a fit, and he starts like flipping road cases, pulling them off the truck, you know, flipped over a couple tables with drinks on them and stuff. He was just having a little tantrum, right? And we were like, oh shit, like let's sneak out of here or something, right? And so finally he convinces the management to pack everyone in the bus, and the whole bus followed my car to this local club. And so we're on our way to the club, and I call the club and I'm like, hey, it's Marcel. Yeah, I'm coming down. Me and Bev and Motley Crue. And the girl goes, whatever, you know. And I said, no, it's me, Bev, and Motley Crue. And so Vince had to stay in the bus, but the rest of them came in. And well, I don't think Mick came in. It was probably just Tommy and Nikki came in, and a couple Crew guys. And it was a crazy night. It was just a nutty night.
We had a lot of crazy times on the Crew.
I can't even imagine. You know, did you ever see the movie The Dirt, the Netflix
I
movie?
did.
It's so funny when the fake Jake Berry is standing at the railing at a motel and he looks at the camera and goes, you know, I've been with Skid Row and Bon Jovi, and he lists a few bands. He goes, but nothing ever prepared me for this, you know, and it's just debauchery.
That would have probably been Rich Fisher.
I think, no, I thought it was supposed to be Doc McGee. It was Doc McGee. It was the manager in the movie. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I saw The Dirt, and because I was on the production side,
Yeah.
I didn't see a lot of the stuff that was going on.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, but you know, I remember being around the night that Nikki,
Yeah.
you know,
Died.
sort of
Yeah.
died. Yeah.
Yeah.
And don't forget, that was a big LA scene. It was
Yeah.
huge LA scene.
Massive.
You know,
Yeah.
you know, you had the Crew, you had Poison, you
Guns
had
N'
Rat,
Roses.
you had GNR.
Yeah.
I mean, and you know, bands like Warrant, and it was pretty insane.
Yeah.
When everybody tells you about, you know, what went on in the 80s and the 90s, and you listen to stories and people go, what do you think? I go, I think you've only just scratched the surface.
Yeah. No kidding.
I mean, it was insane what we used to do.
Yeah.
Insane.
Let me ask you this though. Like, you were with AC/DC in the 80s and Motley Crue in the 80s. Did you have any idea that both those bands would be doing stadium tours in 2024? Like,
Well, you know, did I honestly think I'd still be around in 2024?
yeah, that's true too. Huh? Yeah, that's true too.
I was there. I was very fortunate to be, you know, when AC/DC, I was there when Highway to Hell came out. And that was like
Big,
the
huge.
start of it, you know, but we were still traveling around 2 trucks, you know, and I think the first American tour we had, the support band was Molly Hatchet, and then the band from Atlanta, what they called, the Atlanta Rhythm Section, I can't remember.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we were, and that was like a great bill. I mean, Motley Hatchet were a great Southern rock band.
Yeah, they were.
Great Southern rock band.
Yeah.
And so we went out and we toured, and we did Highway to Hell, and you know, we finished America, and you know, it was obvious the band were going places.
Yeah.
And then we went back into England, and I was working for them full time a lot of the time.
Oh, wow.
So I was on salary, and then we went off to Paris. You know, then, you know, where I was living in London with my then girlfriend, and then, you know, in the middle of the night, or early one morning, we get a phone call from, I think it might have been Ian, say, fucking Bon had died overnight.
That's incredible. Crazy.
You know, and you put the phone down and you go, what did I just hear?
Yeah.
And because he never showed up for rehearsals for Back in Black, and the band were worried about him. And then, you know, are they going to carry on? What are they going to do?
So that album was written with Bon Scott? I didn't realize that.
No. They hadn't started. They do it in 2 ways. They do the music first.
Okay.
And then Bon was going to come in with some lyrics.
I see. Okay.
No, let me get. Bon would come and listen to it and would have some ideas for songs.
Because it's funny to think, like, some of those iconic songs on Back in Black, to think of them being sung by Bon Scott, who's an incredible singer, it would have been so different, just so different.
Yeah. So, and then the band decided to carry on. And then, then I consider to be one of the hardest jobs I've ever had in rock and roll. I think it was myself and Ian, we packed up Bon Scott and Bon Scott's apartment in Victoria. Ugh. And mailed or shipped all his personal belongings home to his mother and father in Perth.
So terrible.
Yeah.
So
and then
terrible.
we had to go about finding a singer.
Yeah.
And we did rehearsals and auditions in a studio in Victoria.
Excuse me one sec, Jake. So it was never discussed like, hey, this is the end of the band or anything. It was just immediately going to be, we're going to get a new singer?
No, it was discussed.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So that had to be on your mind. Like, I've got this great gig. I'm getting paid salary,
I think that I didn't know what was happening on the inner talks amongst the bands. And they went back and forth. And, the Young family being in Australia, George Young and the family were very involved in AC/DC with Harry Vander. And they go, you guys have got this great album. It would be unfair not to let the people hear it.
Yeah.
So then we auditioned for singers, and we had a few.
So how long did it take to make that decision that it was going to go on? Like, was it a couple of weeks, a month?
Yeah, it wasn't a month.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
I think we all shut down for a month.
It was pretty quick.
Because everybody had to go home,
Yeah, yeah.
And then we had these auditions, and along showed up this guy with a floppy cap, and he came in and first audition, and he did really well. We'd had some people in before. I mean, there was talk of Noddy Holder from Slade, but everybody felt that he'd always have the Slade identity.
Yeah.
But he would have had the right voice for AC/DC.
Oh, Jesus. Perfect. Yeah, perfect.
And then we had like Gary Holton from the Heavy Metal Kids and bands like that. And then just a couple of other people. And then Brian came along.
Yeah.
And Brian is, if you know Newcastle, the people are pretty down to earth.
Yeah. So
he came in, started playing pool with one of the crew because he thought he was a band member. That's how much he knew about
AC/DC. That's funny. That's funny.
And they go, where's this other guy? He's 15 minutes late. He's, oh, that's me. So he went up on audition. Ain't he good? And then all of a sudden, they say, let's bring him back for a second time. So Brian came back for a second time. And after the rehearsals, we all headed down to the pub next to the studio. And we're sitting, because we all hung out then. We were all a big family. Wasn't this the rock stars in a 5-star hotel and then the crew on a bus?
Yeah.
We were all hanging out. And I can't remember whether it's Malcolm to Angus or Angus to Malcolm. Do you want to tell him or shall I? And somebody goes, I will. And they turn around to Brian like this. Hey, Brian, you want to be the singer in AC/DC? You go, yeah. And that was it.
Grab another beer.
Then they will be in touch. And he headed back to Newcastle. And then we started to go in rehearsals. And we wanted to do the first show, which was way out of the way. So we went to a convention center in a place called Namur, which is in Belgium. And we got there, and it was the fucking worst sounding hall you'd ever had. The band came in at 3:00 for a sound check, and Malcolm was distraught with the sound.
Yeah.
And he so distraught that he said, we can't play in here.
Yeah.
And then the promoter, it must have been Michel Pearl then, I think, And he goes, well, there's another hall I think sounds better. This is 3:00 in the afternoon. So they all went over. This sounds better. Okay, we're going to move the show there. So we took the whole production and moved it to another hall.
Oh my God.
You're talking a PA, PA, and you're talking 2 genie lifts or something like that, very small.
Yeah.
But
I mean, it's not like today, but still.
No, they built a stage and we went over at like 5:30 and
wow.
put the show up and played at 9:00 that night. And that was Brian's opening gig.
Wow, that's so incredible.
Yeah.
there were a couple of other parts that you told in that story last time and you missed this time. One was that Brian just sort of went there on a bit of a whim. Like he was going to be, I think he was recording a radio commercial or something across the
Hoover.
street.
No, he was doing voiceovers for Hoover.
Hoover vacuums,
vacuum,
right?
yeah.
Yeah.
And he goes, I don't know if I bother. And I think somebody said, well, you should go down. What have you got to lose? He was struggling a little bit. So
Yeah.
then he
Yeah.
had to leave the first day because he had to do a commercial.
I mean, incredible though, like how those little tiny things set your destiny, you know? And if you think about Brian's life, what it became with ACDC, like, holy shit, thank God for that Hoover commercial, you know?
And AC/DC went up, they went down. I mean, there was a time when AC/DC was a hard sell. They had a couple of, not so good albums, and
Yeah.
all of a sudden, they toured Europe this summer,
Yeah.
and I went to see him in Germany actually.
Yeah. Did you?
And I went and I hung out with Brian and I hung out with Angus because they were the only two. from
Yeah.
the old
Everybody
days.
else is gone. Yeah.
And people go, what do you think of AC/DC? And I go, well, back in the day, everybody used to say that their heroes and who they learnt most of was Led Zeppelin.
Yeah.
And now all the bands go, where do you get your energy from? And AC/DC. So
Yeah.
AC/DC were legendary status. And Brian is not a young man. He's 75, 76, I think.
But that's to sing that stuff in your 20s is hard, let alone when you're 70.
Sometimes some of the songs he struggles in, sometimes he's just great.
Yeah.
But basically, I don't know if the people give a shit that much. They just
They
want
really
to
don't.
see AC/DC, and they want to hear Highway to Hell, and they want to say Shook Me All Night Long, and they want to hear
Yeah.
Thunderstruck. They want to hear Back and
They're
Back.
going nuts. Like I've only seen video, but the fans are going nuts, you know?
So
They're loving it.
In my mind, they're legendary status.
Yeah, they certainly are. But I mean, again, like in the 80s, you saw the debauchery, you saw the crazy stuff that Crew were doing, and whether or not they'd even survive as humans was questionable, let alone as a band. But
Not
here they are in 2024 touring.
Not AC/DC.
Not AC/DC. No, AC/DC were always a little more business-like, right?
Well, no, they were not into all the debauchery. Like Angus has always been teetotaled.
Yeah.
Malcolm is well documented, had a little bit of an alcohol problem and a bit of pot, but nothing serious.
Yeah.
I mean, Cliff just came along and played solid bass, but he wasn't wild or anything. I'm sure
No.
we all had our vices.
Yeah.
And Phil sometimes could be a loose cannon, but they wouldn't have the reputation like the Crew got the reputation.
Right.
I'm talking about Motley Crue,
Yeah. No, Motley Crue. I mean, it shocks me that they've retired a couple times too, and there's longevity there that I never in a million years would have pictured.
Well, the pity about Motley Crue now is the inner fighting with the band.
Yeah. You hate seeing bands suing each other and stuff.
Yeah, I mean,
especially original members and stuff like that. Like, have you seen all the Journey stuff with Neil Schon and Jonathan Cain?
What an embarrassment! And then
but they're playing together. They go out on stage every night.
Facebook, and they're slagging each other off. I mean, fantastic. You all got inner politics in bands, but you don't air your dirty laundry on social media.
It's so
Nobody
bad.
gives a shit if Jonathan Cain wants to put a lawsuit to Neil Schon. Neil Schon, he said, Jonathan Cain says we have it in our deal that we get $1,500 a night room allowance.
Yeah.
And Neil's overspending.
Yeah.
So Neil should pay. It's very simple.
Yeah. Work it out though.
Yeah.
Like, why would you go this route? It's just, and how do you get on stage every night and play with these guys when you're going to court during the day? It's incredible. It's incredible. I mean, obviously at that point, it's just a business. It's not about the music. It's not about the art. It's not about anything else. It's just a business.
Unfortunately, I think that our industry is just a business in a lot of ways,
Yeah, it's definitely changed. It's certainly changed a lot. It's even Sarah, who you met at the front end of this, she just went and did a little 1 week tour with Blink 182, just to make a little bit of money and have a little bit of fun. And she spent a number of years touring, and she said it's just so different. You know, everyone's so much more intense, and it's all the money, I guess, that's either being spent or made or whatever you want to call it. But yeah, it's just different. It's very
I
different.
mean, you look at now. I mean, I don't know if you've been reading or catching up on the Oasis saga with
Yeah,
ticketing.
yeah, yeah. We were talking about that this morning.
Um, Look, the dynamic in ticket is sale or demand, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, if there's a huge amount of people requesting the same tickets, the tickets go up.
Hmm.
But I don't see if there's nobody requesting them, the tickets going down.
No, never happens. Never
So
happens.
if you want to do it that way, you should play both sides of the fence.
Yeah. But also, I think in the spirit of longevity, you don't want to go up too far. You know, like this dynamic pricing thing where, the notorious ones like Springsteen, $5,000 tickets and stuff, it's nonsense. It's just crazy. It's
I mean,
lunacy.
I hear that the ticket masters were saying that they put it down to the managers and the agents and the promoters. You know, I don't believe in a lot of it. The promoters. I mean, look, I'm sure look. Everybody wants to make money, but if you look at SJM, in my opinion, Simon Rand, I think he's a really decent guy.
Yeah. Hmm.
You know, I think he probably was involved, but I don't think they thought it would go this far.
No.
And there's one of the ticketing company Trickets or something like that.
Hmm.
When you have £138 service fee, something's fucking wrong.
Exactly. Well, everyone I think is just saying, no, it's their fault, it's their fault, it's their fault, but everyone's still willing to take their heavy piece out of it, right? Like even the
Just
artists,
put the tickets on sale, and if they were £150 for standing, and they were £350 for VIP, and everybody went in line and bought it, nobody would have complained.
yeah,
It's when
the
you get
secondary
online,
market.
when you get online and it's 110, and by the time you get to the tickets, it's 328.
It's
I think,
insane.
yeah.
Well, and then the secondary market, all the stub hubs and all these companies out there that, are basically legal scalpers, right? And yeah, it's problematic, And then I think the artists are starting to, well, they started to look at it and go, okay, all these people are making all this money. We just need to raise our prices, so we're keeping it all. But I don't know that that's the answer either. I don't know. Who knows? What do I
don't
know?
know.
What do I know? So the Sphere, I want to talk to you about the Sphere.
Wow.
Obviously, you and U2 go back a long way, and you've done some incredible things together. You did the big claw thing with
Oh,
them,
yeah.
right? The stadium thing.
It was very
Legendary.
funny about the claw. I mean, uh, I remember the start of the claw. We'd finished probably Joshua Tree, and we were in Hawaii. Was the last show, and we're
Yeah.
standing on stage, and the last sound check, everybody, hey, hugs and things like that. And Bono comes up and Jake. He goes, I want to talk to you. He said, can we play a show in the round? And I go, boss, we can do anything we like. Knowing that there were shows in the round. And I'm
Yeah.
going, this is fantastic. The next tour, we're going to have a 60 by 40 stage with no production, small trucks. It's going to be an easy tour. Right? That was my first
That's
thought.
hilarious. That's so funny.
And then, then of course, a few months passed by, and then Mark Fisher,
Yeah.
Mark called me, and my life story in the industry would not be complete without my take and my respect for the greatest set designer of all time being Mark Fisher.
Absolutely.
So his theory was, he said to me, Jake, how wide is the football field? And I said, it's 68 meters roughly. That's the playing surface, football field, and the playing surface. Okay, well, we're going to play in the round, but we're not going to be in the middle. We're going to be 2/3, 1/3. Because all these guys of the older bands who have stage presence always rely on a downstage center, a downstage left, and a downstage right.
Yeah.
It's hard for them to get their head around a 360
I get
environment.
it. Yeah.
And that was the same with Mick. We tried in the round once, and Mick wanted a downstage edge,
Yeah.
and he failed to get it. And he tried in the round, no security, hated it.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
I just did Metallica a couple weeks ago or I went to it in Edmonton. I'm at my house up in Canada right now.
right,
And it was weird. Like it was like, where do you stand? Because where's the band going to be? Well, yeah, there's a drum set on all four sides, basically, right?
I mean, but if you look at Metallica very briefly, that's going back to the Black Album tour when Lars had two kits.
Yeah, yeah,
It is
true,
an example.
true, yeah,
So, and then Mark's idea going back to 360, if I make the stage big enough, I'll make the stadium look smaller and more intimate. Sounds mad, doesn't it?
it does, yeah,
100% correct.
yeah, yeah,
And then I remember we get to Stageco for the first test build, and you get these towers that hold a roof up, which are like maximum 1 meter wide, and these towers are right on a truck, and you can fucking stand up inside of them.
really,
And we did a test build, and then we were in the middle of a small village called Werchter in Belgium doing a test build, and the law of building in these small towns is nothing can be higher than a church steeple.
what, really?
Yeah, if you have a church and steeple, you can't build anything higher. The church steeple has to be going back hundreds and hundreds of years. And then,
That's wild.
you built our thing, and you could see the church steeple in the background if you went 5 kilometers away, and it was dwarfed by this thing.
Yeah,
So pictures then started evolving on the very, very early days of, social media.
yeah,
And then the management from U2 come, I said, Jake, we're seeing pictures of our stage on media. Well, you got to block it out if you can't do it. I said, well, we're in a yard and there's a road that goes by. And then somebody said to me, well, you need to put up a drape. And I'm going, you're talking about a drape, or
yeah,
you're talking about something that's 120 feet tall and 80 feet long. First of all, it lasts 2 minutes when the wind came.
yeah,
But 360, and it's amazing. I was talking to Hedwig, the mayor of Stageco, the other day, Dirk de Decker, and a Stageco, and somebody else, and we were kind of we do this, we relive our past, and I sent some pictures of this stage that made the city look small, and everybody wrote back, still my favorite project to work on.
it's incredible. It's
It
such a
was,
beautiful project.
that was a trendsetter. We set the goal for big trucks, 47, 50 trucks on production, 38 on steel for each system.
Yeah,
And
Jesus.
everybody goes, oh, I got 50 trucks of production. I got 40 trucks of production. I said, great. But I did it first.
Yeah, yeah,
And then, so then, with U2 going, that was great. And then the next thing, we did the Joshua Tree, we did Innocence and Experience, all groundbreaking shows in their own respect.
yeah.
And so then came the big offer of the Sphere. So the Sphere, I mean, we were there. We were the first. When we first started doing our advance of the Sphere, there was no screen.
Well, let me ask you though, going back a little bit. So the Sphere, did the Sphere come looking for you two, or did you two say we want to be the first to play in this incredible thing?
I think it was kind of mutual, to tell you the truth.
Yeah,
I mean, Bono's very creative. The sound system appealed to Edge, where he could play in stereo and get through stereo and things like that.
yeah.
And just the whole vibe of doing it. And of course, also being the first is a big advantage.
Well, and it had to be somebody huge too. It couldn't be, some, medium act. It had to be the Stones or U2 or somebody that big,
Well, I mean, I think both parties put their balls on the line.
Yeah, yeah.
Like Jim Dolan, you can say whatever you like about Jim Dolan. He had big balls to put 2.3 billion
No
of his
kidding.
money on this amazing, unique way of seeing a concert.
Yeah,
And then you too had to go in and make sure that all the hype of the venue didn't override what they were producing.
yeah,
So a lot of discussions, a lot of things. And also there was a lot of technology that had to be invented, how to get the content, because the content, they all wanted it in 16K.
yeah.
And 16K, the rendering time for one song was nearly 3 days.
Jesus.
So, and all
Wow.
of that. And we started, we went to look at it. I remember.
Well, even
No,
just like previs and stuff, like how, because you can't replicate being inside this.
well, what Willie did, and Rick and the team, we used virtual reality.
Ah, yeah, that's
So
smart.
they saw it
Yeah,
through the glass because
that's smart. Yeah, that makes
that
sense.
our whole feeling was you two got such a heavy schedule of other commitments outside the band, especially B. So the thought was we can't get them all to Vegas at the same time, but we can all send them glasses and a virtual reality. We can show the footage that way.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Huh.
So you have to remember about the Sphere. When we went in when we installed the lighting, we were working. First of all, they had an in-house lighting, and they had Fuse do the lighting. And the reason we went with Fuse because we thought if they put the install lighting, they can then run our cables for our lights when we want to go in, which was the case, which saved us a couple of days.
Yeah, that
Then,
made sense.
the lighting behind the screen. We did a test of the screen in New York on Bono's book tour,
Yeah.
at the Hammerstein in another ballroom, and found that the spotlights weren't as good behind the screen as a wash light
Huh.
because, we're talking about putting spots behind, but with the screen and the framework, they would be so fragmented.
Yeah.
It didn't work.
Yeah, it's better when it's not focused. Yeah.
So then, we go there and we're there while they're putting the screen in. And so when it all came, we installed the lighting behind in the stage box, behind which they call a stage box. And the rigging behind the stage box wasn't really very conducive to hanging lights because they're the big hollow plot sound system over the proscenium. If you imagine going back to the Grateful Dead, the Wall of Sound,
Yeah.
that's what you had behind you, but up high,
Yeah.
which was another problem a little later. And so you're putting the lights in, but we're putting the lights in. And then they had this movie that they were producing called Postcard from Earth.
Yeah.
And they were finishing building a building. So we used to have meetings every day, on what was going to happen the next 2 days. And you get the next day change. So, okay, so Jake, what time do you want tomorrow? You can have 8 hours. And I go, we'll take from 10 till 5, whatever it is. Okay, and then from 5 till midnight, they would be showing the movie on the screen to test the movie, colorize it, edit it, and things like that. And then from midnight till 9 would be construction.
Jesus.
I
Wow.
mean, and we all worked around each other, and it was a fantastic experience. Everybody accepted it. And somebody once said to me, "You're giving the building too much time." And I go, "Okay, so if I don't give them the time, then the seating would not have been inspected and been ready for the opening night. So therefore, we would be cancelling an opening night." And I said to somebody, "You don't want Adele too." You remember when Adele
No.
cancelled on the show?
Yeah.
So we all
Yeah.
worked together, and the band were so enthusiastic about making this whole thing work and believing in the construction and believing what they're doing.
It all had to be right. Yeah, you
Yeah,
couldn't
so
you couldn't make you two happy but not make the building happy. The building had to be happy too. It was all so new.
and the film people and
Yeah.
Jim Dolan, he'd
Hmm.
invested money in the movie, so he
Yeah.
wants the movie right. He had
Yeah.
it produced by Darren Aronofsky, and Darren Aronofsky wanted his way.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. That makes
and
sense.
we always did Monday to Friday.
How early did you start though? Like how far in advance of the
Well,
first show?
probably in the concept design a year,
Wow. That's
and
wild.
then we did some band rehearsals in Nice. And what they had done is because the holoplot sound comes at you from 360, so nobody ever had that. So with the help of the Sphere and the Sphere engineers, sound engineers, we went to I found a great film studio in Nice. Fantastic. Fantastic. So we had the band rehearsing in one room, and I built a mock-up stage, which is the same size as the one we're going to use in the Sphere, except it didn't have the video floor, but it got everybody used to the rate, which everybody goes back then, that's a lot of money. I don't know if we can afford it. I go, you will wish you had it. The best U2 rehearsals we ever did is when we could do it on a mock stage.
Yeah.
Just band rehearsal. So we did that. And in another studio across the street, we set up this trussing system and then hung speakers, put a console in the middle, and then like a couch where the band could come and listen to the atmospheric sound. And so we set that up, and the speakers were all the measurements scaled down so you could get the feel and do the mix, because then you have to turn the mix like Edgewood goes, I like my guitars to come out high section right in streets, then augment it with high left and down low. So you used to play with very much like a surround sound, but way more complicated.
Yeah.
So we rehearsed that in Nice for 3 weeks while we did lighting rehearsals and lighting install in Vegas. And the show was going to open September the 29th. And we're not building contractors. If somebody comes to do your bathroom and they're going to be finished in 3 weeks, they come up to you and go, it's going to be another 3 weeks and it's $2,000 more.
Right.
That doesn't happen in our world.
Yeah, no, it doesn't.
29 to 8 o'clock, no matter, it had to happen. And so we were doing lighting and we were building the stage in the Sphere and working around construction and working around some of their installs, like a little bit of lighting and a lot to do with seats. And then for the movie, I don't know if you've ever seen it, but you should. It's well worth it. They have these big effects machines they got 20 of them, and they're 8 by 8 by 8, and they all have to be connected underground, and they stand up. So they had to put them through test. And so then we had the seating, then we had the test, then we had the movie, and we had U2. So we took 8 hours. We would took 8 hours, and if they were doing install work and they weren't doing a movie, we used to get screen time to edit the video.
Wow.
So it was just, for me, it was just a fantastic
journey.
Yeah, for me, everybody, to get where we got by September the 29th was a minor miracle. And I'm saying that from the U2 band. They sacrificed rehearsal time to make the deadline.
Wild.
And then we couldn't sacrifice getting the seats commissioned because we'd have no show.
Yeah.
And Brian was the head of construction, and because I worked on Bob the Builder, I used to call him Bob the Builder,
Yeah.
So somebody goes, where do you want me to start tomorrow? Because we used to store our stage downstage. So so they could watch if we had to. And then the seatings were in 3 sections. He goes, Jake, can you push your stage down left and we'll work on the center? Or we'll work on the right, then we'll come to the center. And when we finish, you'll just move your stage on the other side. And that's the sort of things that we did. I mean, which sounds simple enough. We come to move it the first time, and it was on a rolling stage, 2-level rolling stage, all the back line, all the hollow plot sound, bass, floor fill, all the video processing, everything was underneath the stage. We come to push it. We all went, well, we'll get 20 people around this. 1, 2, 3, 4, fucking nowhere. Didn't even move an inch.
A little heavier than we thought, perhaps.
When we tried a forklift, and then it wouldn't work with a forklift.
Oh, no.
Then we had to get 2 forklift people, but we found a way, and it was a little painful.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm guessing House Lights Go was pretty exciting on September 29th, Did anything go wrong massively?
We were all expecting, and we all explained to the band, with this many video tiles, this many pixels, you're going to have a show where there's a tile out. And there's nothing you can do about it until the next day, because all of it there's only a few tiles that you can get to. One of them is a boom lift that has to come in the floor.
Yeah.
and one is you had to have rope access guys hanging down from the ceiling because the dome went like this,
Yeah.
but the sphere inside went like this, so it'd be 30 feet from the ceiling to the,
Right. Yeah.
to get the look.
Yeah.
So I mean, but the first night, we had a DJ, we set him up, and we played, and then when the band were ready, we had the intro tape, and and then our creative people go, Jake, we want to start the DJ stage right, and we want to push him across the floor, across the crowd to finish stage left, and the Sphere people going, can't be done, and I looked at him, I go, evidently you've never been to EDC, Electric Daisy Carnival.
Yeah, no shit.
Or at this Disney World where they do the Disney parade.
Yeah.
We can do this. So I think we talked them into it, and it worked pretty well. I think we only hit a couple of people's knees and one or two toes, but nothing serious.
Yeah, funny.
Nothing that a great poster or program wouldn't solve.
Right.
And so we opened, and the first reaction to the screen opening was really fucking nerve-wracking. But I had to say we had a fantastic first show, which is scary.
Yeah.
Normally the second show is pretty average.
Yeah.
But we had the first one or two shows, and then the bandwagon started. The reviews were the best reviews I think you two ever had, and the bandwagon was moving. So
yeah, it was picked up a lot of energy along the way, that's for sure.
If that opening night had not been great, then it could have been trouble, I think, for the U2 for the career, but it would have been the demise of the Sphere, I think.
Exactly. And there have been a ton of naysayers. I'm still on the fence with the whole concept of the Sphere.
I saw the U2 thing, and the people I took said it was the best thing they ever saw.
Yeah.
I mean, you have to go about it a different way than touring. You have to go in the aspect that you're sharing. You have to go the aspect that you're not. Jim and the Sphere team will not let anybody hang lights in front of his screen. So no lighting trusses in the air. It was front lighting and back lighting.
Yeah, yeah.
So it was very, very minimal.
Yeah.
And
but my argument, basically, not argument, but I guess where it hits for me, and I didn't see it in person, so I've seen video and pictures like galore, but doesn't it make the band look small? Like, because I remember when I first saw the very first video of, might have been the opening night, and I had to look a while to find Bono.
Well, I mean, this is what makes the Sphere so special. It's a different way of experiencing a show.
It is, yeah.
It's an immersive experience, so the band become part of the building, part of the screen, part of the whole thing, part of the whole.
Right, and I never looked at it like that. I never looked at it like that. I just looked at it as a concert stage, You
could look at all the videos you wanted for the next 200 years.
Yeah.
None of those videos ever did the show justice.
Yeah.
The only way you can honestly say to yourself, this is not a great show, is by seeing it live.
Yeah.
So, we went in and we did 40 shows there.
Yeah, it's incredible.
Which was great. And then, then they got Dead & Co. And,
yeah.
We helped the Dead & Co. people. We would let people come and see how we're doing it and, show them the layout and come to see the show, because we had to move the stage up and down stage while the movie was playing.
Yeah.
Which in the end was the show would finish at 10:45 and we'd be in the hotel at like 12:15.
Yeah.
And then it was great for me because having toured pretty hard ass for 44 years, 43 years, whatever, I think the Sphere helped me wean off the desire of going on the road.
Yeah.
And then turn my life to consultancy and things like that.
Yeah. Good for you.
So, and then I wanted to see, I went to U2 and I watched it as a production manager.
Yeah.
I went and saw Dead & Co. and watched it as a thing. And I said to Derek Featherstone, I go, I think I must be a secret Deadhead because I thought it was fantastic.
Yeah.
I liked it.
Well, I only saw video and pictures, but just the images were incredible. Yeah. The images of that were just like, holy Christ. Now you can see why everybody's high on acid and mushrooms and stuff. You know, it looks pretty
I mean, my
tremendous.
my only thing really against the Sphere, and I don't know, well, I'm going to say it anyway because everybody must have a say. I think it needs to be more diversified.
Yeah. Yeah, it does seem to like everything becomes sort of similar to the same
Well,
kind
it's
of.
the same age group of bands.
Yeah.
They need to do
You need a Taylor
something.
Swift in there or
Well,
something,
no,
you
no.
know.
Taylor Swift. You want a bit of hip hop. You want a bit of rap.
Yeah.
You want to get some that you want some Latin. You want a female as well.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
Taylor Swift comes in.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, there's
I
a
mean,
UFC
I've
fight
always,
going in there in a month or so, I think, right?
yeah. They're starting to load in now. I think.
Yeah.
But you know, you look at it, and you know, Asa has been fortunate enough to be around a long time, and I don't think it'll ever happen. But this is the ideal place for Pink Floyd.
Oh, hell yeah. Hell yeah.
I
They're the
mean,
perfect band.
there's a band for 50 years have been searching for the perfect sound.
Perfect.
It's there. The
Yeah.
perfect visuals. I mean, I was thinking I've
You're
done
right about that.
the wall, and you see the visuals with all the hammers walking along like that. Just
Incredible.
imagine what that would be like. But
Incredible.
you know, I don't think that'll ever happen. But
Brickman's in, I think, in Rome with Gilmore right now. I think they're either at the Coliseum or next to the Coliseum or something. Like it's some incredible
Circus
backdrop for
Maximus
a
or something
Gilmore
like
show.
that, isn't it?
What's that?
Circus Maximus or something like that.
Yeah, yeah. But that'd be pretty incredible too. So this other thing that you're working on that you were telling me about earlier, this thing in India. Tell me
Yeah.
about that because that's really interesting. I have a couple of employees in India, and it's always a challenge. So I can't even imagine putting a show on there.
So my first venture into India was probably Shakira way back when, and it was very basic local production, and you know, we struggled a little bit because there wasn't very many people, the infrastructure. Well,
Yeah,
it might have been the Rolling Stones actually. We played Bangalore and we played Mumbai,
yeah,
and those were challenges, not because of the Indians, believe it or not, for
yeah.
Bangalore, is because we had our freight arrive in oh, I can't remember the name of the city. It'll come to me. And then it was 200 kilometers away from Bangalore,
Okay.
and our steel containers were so overloaded. It took them nearly 4 days to get there.
Jesus, 200
So,
miles.
so on Friday, a Friday show, we got our containers on Thursday morning. And then everybody on that Rolling Stones crew, except some of the people you would never think would do anything, we all jumped in and we got to with the Indian labor, which was not that great, but willing, but they didn't
Yeah,
understand.
yeah.
So, you know, a carton of Marlboros, you get a guy carrying 4 decks at a time, you know? But we
Yeah,
did a show and it worked, and we played Mumbai and it worked. And it was a great experience. I get to meet one guy who was his first ever gig, a guy called Vincent Samuels, who now comes and does some of our shows in EDC in Vegas, and he's done fantastic. And then so we had Shakira, and then we took EDC to India, and then on my way to India, on the plane, I didn't feel that great. So I go to the stewardess and I go, I'm not feeling great. So I this dull ache, and it didn't matter if I sat down, stood up, stood on my head, laid down, lay on my stomach, lay on my back. I had this dark ache here. So they put me up on the galley seat, and then they give you the customary aspirin, and then some oxygen and some a nitrous pill to clear up if you're blocked. In the end, it didn't work. So I was on my way to Delhi, and then they said this. They got a lady doctor, said, "Oh, it seems to me like you either have bad heartburn or angina," and they set up for a hospital to ambulance to pick me up at Delhi airport. And the stewardess came to me 30 minutes later. She goes, "How you feeling?" I goes, "And this is not getting any better." And then the plane veers to the left or right, left, I think, because I was on the left hand side. And the captain comes on the radio. You probably see that we're veering, and don't worry about that liquid you set aside. we're dumping fuel because we have a medical emergency and we have to make an emergency landing.
Oh, wow. Just like that, huh?
Yeah, so I got the flight guide directed to Baku in Azerbaijan.
Wow.
So there in I you could go on forever, but in the end of the day, I got the stories of like they wouldn't let me in the country because I didn't have a visa, so I had to get $25 to pay for a visa. Then they'd let me in, and then I finished up in a hospital, which was amazing. And 4 hours later, I had 3 stents put in.
Wow. So
So,
did you ever actually have the heart attack, or was it just like,
oh yeah, they say you had one.
yeah, wow.
So that was my first. I never got to India. So
Yeah.
the next time we
Oh,
went
you never
over.
even got there.
No,
Oh my
no,
goodness. Wow. Crazy.
no. So then we came to do in 2019. It picked up a bit, and Bono had expressed a desire to play India. So we went through it. I met this guy who owned a company called Book My Show, which is basically an Indian ticketing agent. And have a guess how many tickets they do a month in the peak season?
No idea.
30 million.
30 million.
Bigger than
Holy
tickets.
Christ.
I mean, look, the 1 rupee cinema ticket, it's not, the gross may be the same, but they actually do that many tickets. So we
Wow.
went there in 2019, and then it was very similar to what you said about taking everything there. We took the whole Joshua Tree tour, and we took a lot of the infrastructure.
Yeah. Yeah, that
And
seems to
then,
be what's missing in India for the most part is
but I mean,
infrastructure.
this guy at Book My Show, Ashish, is very forward thinking. He has a very forward thinking staff, and then he does Lollapalooza there, so he does big shows, and then the infrastructure is growing. Like this year, there's been we've had 24 people pass a scaffolding high scaffolding test. We've had people pass a rigging test. There's company with a bunch of chain motors. There's
So you're
company.
you're involved in training people over there now?
We talk about it and they do it, but it's the same company.
Interesting.
And
Huh.
yes, I do want to. And I talk to the people, and I'm not on a day-to-day basis, but we talk about it all the time. And then they bought more lights. They've got more sound. There's a great bunch of acoustic D&B sound in India, along with K1 and everything like that.
Yeah.
Lighting that everybody's gone down to, like, everybody's a bunch of Sharpies,
Yeah.
and you just swap them out. The video in everything across the world, I would have to say the videos come the furthest because it's now more affordable, and they buy the new stuff, so it's all 5 mil, 4 mil, 3 mil.
Yeah.
You hang it on a scaffolding and you get prepared to do that. But yeah, so Ash asked me if I would help him consult. So I did that last year. And basically he was promoting Ed Sheeran in Mumbai.
Okay.
So we went there, and also, it gave people, I hope, a little bit of confidence that I was involved, And so he did Ed Sheeran, and then I was out, as I know, I started the Coldplay tour, and he wanted Coldplay. So I introduced him to all the right people to get Coldplay. And so they did Ed Sheeran last year. They did Sting at Lollapalooza last year. And then Ed came and played, and they built an arena from the ground up in a dirt field in the middle of a horse race track. And Ed did like 50,000 people. And it was a big mixture of local and touring production. They brought in the stage. All the sound was local. The video over the stage was tour. The video support on the towers was local. And
Wow.
the lighting was 50-50. And all the stagehands came in. So they've improved the stagehands now to an acceptable level. And then you just bring in, you have to have more people that translate because, so, but it's come a long way. I mean, for the Coldplay Adventure, it's exactly the same production that they'll bring in what they take to Asia now. Like to Thailand, and what we did in South America.
Yeah.
So and then the Indian promoter, we bought a stage. We bought a Star Live, a 25-meter stage,
Yeah.
so that you can do Lollapalooza. You can hang a bit more weight. And on Coldplay, we're using the infrastructure to help with the stage. And with our newfound scaffolding company, and there's 20 guys, we can build scaffolding structure.
Yeah.
So I would have to say that if you went there 15 years ago and you went back there now, you would be really pleasantly surprised.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, one of the things I notice in our industry in India is, like, I would expect that they'd have all Chinese knockoffs of video screens and Chinese knockoffs of lighting fixtures and stuff. And there is some of that, of course, just like there is here. But they have all the top brand stuff over there now. Like, they really are buying the top brand
Really
equipment.
big investment. It's a mix of the Acme Chinese lights knockoff.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's Chinese motors in some place.
Yeah.
And, I was talking to a trussing company there, and all their trusses is designed and engineered to the German European spec.
Yeah. And they make them in India.
And they have the biggest plant of truss manufacturing. They could be the biggest truss manufacturer in the world.
Wow. Huh. Interesting. Yeah, that's interesting. So what's your grand vision for India then? Just to help them create enough infrastructure to be able to do massive shows all year instead of just one or two a year or whatever?
I think that the infrastructure would be to take the big show, the medium show, and the small show and keep working.
Yeah.
Because if you have like a show like Sting, and Sting, it's experience.
Yeah.
And things like that. And Ed Sheeran was, the things they learned, like they built all the temporary dressing rooms and offices.
Yeah.
And so they were doing a loadout, and we come back next morning. The dressing rooms are intact, but they've taken down all the production offices.
Oh God!
Just ass about face. But
yeah,
look, I enjoy it. And like I said earlier, if I can just give back a little bit of what I got out of this, then I'm happy.
Yeah. Well, India, I would expect that one of the biggest challenges is venues, right? Like they probably don't. You can't piece a tour together in India very easily.
Well, I believe you play cricket grounds.
Yeah.
And that is, as to the Indians, that's more sacred than the New York Yankees baseball stadium.
Yeah.
You've got to think it on par of that. And then going back to the infrastructure, you mentioned generators. When I was there, they had the Cricket World Cup there. I don't know if you're not very familiar with cricket.
No, I know what it is, but I'm not a fan or anything.
So they had to do like 16 venues for a worldwide broadcast.
That's a big deal.
Yeah, so they've all bought new generators.
Oh, wow.
Silent generators, in-sync generators to run TV.
Wow.
And, so I don't worry about power like I used to.
Yeah.
And then, because every show then had pyro.
Yeah.
So you would have a pyro display. So they're not so, you can't import pyro, but you can use the local products, and it's quite good.
Yeah.
And of course, they had to have lighting all the way around there for this thing. So the Cricket World Cup 2 years ago was a phenomenon boost to the industry.
Yeah. Yeah. That's really cool. That's good to hear. And what about Insomniac? That's still a big deal for you, huh?
Big deal for me. Love it. I love going to hear that thump. I love to get my trousers flapped, and and I think that the different genre of music. I always thought it was one genre. There's like 98 different variations of.
Yeah, I'm with you though. I don't know them.
So, I always like looking at the Wasteland stage because I feel that's 2024's heavy metal version of AC/DC.
Yeah.
Your mum doesn't want you to go there,
Yeah, yeah. It's incredible though. Like, again, does that surprise you how big EDM has become?
Oh yeah.
It's shocking to me. Like, it's shocking.
Vegas, I mean, we did 180,000 a night last year.
Wow. That is incredible.
And we're trying to get it to 200,000 a night, and that means moving around a bit of it because it's played in the inner bowl of Las Vegas Motor Speedway.
Right.
And yeah, so if we move a little bit more stuff out that we don't need there, we'll get that.
But Insomniac does a lot more than just Vegas, right?
Oh, they do probably 300 shows a year.
Yeah. And so you're consulting sort of at the top level on how to make all of those shows great.
I work mostly with two guys, Justin Spag and Forrest Hunt, who's the executive producers, and I'll do whatever they want me to do.
Yeah. Yeah. What an operation, though. I mean, it's incredible what they've built. It's not that long ago that this all started. Like, the Miami one, and then EDC in Vegas. It's not that long ago, and look at how big it is. It's insane.
Like Insomniac have like three big brands. They have EDC, they have Hard Summer, Nocturnal, Beyond, and Escape.
Right.
It's Escape from Wonderland, Beyond Wonderland, and Countdown. Countdown's New Year's Eve. And they're the three major brands. So in EDC Vegas, there's like 7 different brands of music. There's Kinetic Field, which is which is all scenery and looking pretty. You have Stage 2, which is a little bit of scenery, but just a lot of video. Stage 3 is video and lighting. It's a production stage. So you're allowed to bring in your own video content as long as we like it, which is something you're not allowed to do on Stage 1. And then you have Stage 4, which is like Neon Garden, which is another genre that people with the DJs like people on stage. So you can have 50 people on stage around the DJ.
Crazy.
And then Stage 5 what's Phase 5? It's bass pod. So it's a pretty bass pod. And then you have Wastelands, which is fucking drum and bass.
Yeah.
I love that. Fucking they get down
I find it rather humorous that you're kind of like the king of king of EDM, and you're 70 years old. It's awesome.
Music has no age barriers.
No, of course not. It's amazing. Do you still spend time in Greece?
Yeah, well, my girlfriend is a promoter in Greece.
Well, I didn't want to say, do you still have the girlfriend in Greece? Because I always stick my foot in my mouth saying those things. So
yeah, well, we do. I was there most of the summer because
good.
She's very experienced, but they have a small operation.
Yeah.
And then she had, a lot of shows. She had Rammstein at the Olympic Stadium.
Fun.
What a show.
Yeah.
What a show.
That's another phenomenon. It's just keeps getting bigger.
East German death metal. And of course she had 2 nights with Coldplay, which I helped her because I knew how it worked.
Yeah.
And then that was the stadium show. And then she had her small boutique festival with Lenny Kravitz for about 7,000.
Fun.
And then a couple of nights with Sting.
So you're still sort of working when you're there?
Oh, no, I'm not. I'm MS.
Pretend working. Moral support.
Moral support.
That works. So
I'm chauffeur.
Sarah, who you met earlier, our producer, she lives on Crete. So
we live right in the middle of Athens.
Ah, nice. Awesome. So for the rest of 24, 25, any big plans besides the India stuff and Insomniac?
India, EDC, Orlando. I might go to Escape and then probably figure out where I'm going to be for the rest of the year. And hopefully when a lot of stuff dies down, that Nana, my girlfriend, will be able to come and spend some time here because she loves it here.
Fun. You're in Arizona, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Nice.
I used to have a desk set up here where she used to work, and then she goes, I can't work. You're working all the time.
Well, and you probably have a more boomy voice than hers too, so you can't compete with her over the who gets to hear your phone call better or whatever.
No, so we set an office upstairs, and she loves it up there.
Nice.
I sent a picture of her office. Say your office is missing you. So I hope that inspires.
Long distance relationships are tough. I mean, sometimes they're okay, but sometimes they're tough.
I haven't known any different. Yeah,
of course. Yeah, I mean, touring. Yeah. Well, Jake, it's been amazing catching up with you. I appreciate it so much, and appreciate you. And you're a legend. There's few peoples in our industry, few people I'd call a legend, and you're one of them.
Thank you very much for the compliment. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
And you know, legend or not legend, if I can leave a legacy and return that legacy to make this industry grow, because it's a fantastic industry.
Yeah.
You know, it's amazing what it does. It's amazing what it produces. It's got amazing amount of people from the top to the bands to the crews all the way down, and it needs to maintain. So,
well, and you've pushed the envelope so much, like with the size, the enormity, the challenges of some of these projects you've done, the U2 Claw, the U2 Sphere, all the big Stones tours. You know, you've just done some. You've really made things much more big and much more, like, you made people, I think, expand their visions with some of the projects that you've been involved on.
well, I hope that to be the case, and not necessarily in large shows, but in the medium shows and the
Yeah.
small shows.
Yeah.
It's all about the personality and the attitude, I believe.
Yeah. I agree. Well, thanks, Jake. We'll see you.
You're very welcome.
We'll see you
I hope
again
got
soon, I
everything
hope.
you wanted.